Hello everyone! So today I am here to do a series review on the Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. And I read all three of these books this summer and they were very, very good and I liked them a lot. And let's just first talk about how freaking pretty these covers are. They're just beautiful. So, if you don't know what the Grisha Trilogy is about, basically the first book, Shadow and Bone, follows the main character of Alina Starkov, and she is 16 or 17, I believe, and one day she is crossing the Fold, which is like a dark, like, gross, evil place. It like separates Russia. It's like a futuristic fantasy type of Russia, and it's like this, they call it the Unsea because it's like not the sea, it's the Fold, and it's like all black and there's monsters in there and it's pretty bad. Anyway, she's crossing the Fold and her best friend Mal gets attacked by one of the monsters, and all of a sudden she just lights up the Fold, and you find out that she is a sun summoner, and she can summon light, whereas other Grisha can summon other things, like there's people who can summon water and summon air, and then there's fire summoners, but then there's also the healers and the materialki, I think that's how you pronounce it, and they're the fabricators. They can make things. So anyways, there's many different type of Grisha, and not everyone is a Grisha, but they find out that Alina is the only sun summoner, and so that's a pretty big deal, and she goes to start learning how to be a Grisha, and then things go wrong, just like they do in every fantasy series. So yeah, that's basically what the first book is about, and then the other two are kind of about that but more, and I don't want to go too far into it because I want to keep this review non-spoilery, so that's all I will tell you. And if you want to see an individual review on each book, you can go to my blog in the link below, and there is individual reviews for every book, and they kind of go more in depth about what I liked, what I didn't like. But yeah, let's get started with this series review. So first, I gave Shadow and Bone a 4 out of 5 stars because it was kind of slow in the beginning. It was slow going. It took me a little while to get into it. It wasn't like first page, bam, I was hooked. It took me about 100 or so pages at least to get interested, but I got there and I pretty much marathoned this one in a day. And then Siege and Storm, I started this one and I was kind of in a reading slump, so I didn't read too much, and this was slow going at first too, so it wasn't really enticing me to read. But book 2-bathon was coming up and I made myself read, and once I hit page like 100 again, I was in. I was hooked and I marathoned this in one day and it was so good. And I gave Siege and Storm a 4 out of 5 stars also for basically the same reason. And then we get to Ruin and Rising. And oh man, this book was so good. 5 out of 5 stars for sure. I marathoned this one the first day of book 2-bathon and I had no problem with it. Literally from the very beginning I was hooked and it was so, so good. So as I said, Shadow and Bone and even Siege and Storm was a little slow going in the beginning, but that's kind of expected because it is a fantasy series, and especially the first book in a fantasy series is usually a little slow because you're world building and learning about the characters and everything, and then the second book is usually a little slow because the second book is usually where things are going downhill and everything's going wrong, and they kind of have to introduce and explain what's been going on from the time that this ended to the time that this started and how everything's been going awful. So yeah, it was kind of expected and it wasn't bad. It was interesting and they both did hook me in the end, so that is very, very good. The best part though was that each book got better. So Leigh Bardugo is a new author. This series was her very first series that she ever wrote. Shadow and Bone was her very first book, and for a first book, this was awesome. This series was so amazing, and kudos to any author that can just build this fantasy world that is nothing like the real world at all and just make up everything out of their heads. It's just crazy. And every book got better, and you can tell that she's been growing as a writer, as an author, and I'm so excited to see any work she does in the future because I know it's going to be awesome because these books were just awesome, and she definitely has a gift as an author. So, in Siege and Storm, we get some new characters, and they were amazing. And it's part of what made me love this book more than the first one, because there was like the three main-ish characters that I really liked in Shadow and Bone. But then in Siege and Storm, I wanted new characters. And I got them, and they were way better than the original main characters. And they just added dimension, they added depth to the story, and they made you more emotionally attached to the story than you already were. And I think that was really good, introducing characters in the second one to just keep the story interesting and keep it going and make you want to read more, because now you're getting attached to new characters and you're not just seeing the same old characters again and again and getting boring. Because no matter how much you like a character in a book, reading about them over and over and over again and never getting a break from them and never getting new characters that are like really big parts of the story can get really annoying. And so like the main character Alina, I really liked her in general as a main character. She was awesome. She was a great heroine, and in the first one she kicks ass, in the second one she kicks ass, and then the third one she kicks even more ass, and she was just a bomb character. But after a while I was like, you know, I need some new characters. I need some new people. And that's what I got in Siege and Storm. And I really liked it. So, let's talk for a second about Ruin and Rising. I'm not going to go in depth. Don't worry. You won't be spoiled from this. I promise. But Ruin and Rising had the most crazy plot twists ever. Like, reading this was just... I can't. Like, not only were the plot twists crazy, but in this book, especially out of all three, the descriptions, the places they go, are just so magical and so fantastic. And I don't mean fantastic in like an awesome way. I mean fantastic as in fantasy, like fantastical places that like don't exist. And it's just so cool. And you could just like imagine it in your head, and it felt like you were there experiencing it, and I loved it. And then back to the plot twist, just guys, it was crazy, but so good, and it kept my attention, and I had to keep reading. I finished this in a day. I couldn't stop. It was so good. The one thing overall that I had a problem with was the ending. I felt like the ending to the series, and I understand that it is very difficult to end a fantasy series in a way that you don't keep going with the series. Not keeping it open-ended, but really closing it off. I realize that that is so difficult, and I don't even know how I would do that if I were an author. I just kudos to every author because they do so much more work. But anyways, I just felt like I wished that some of the characters in the book had different fates than they did. And that doesn't necessarily mean they died, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's just the way that it was ended and the way that it just came together. It came together nicely, but then the way it like went into forever, like how it ended and how they lived on the rest of their life was a little anticlimactic, and I would have liked it to be a little different. I would have liked it to be more like in line with the rest of the story, because the rest of the story was just kick-ass and awesome, and then the ending was kind of just like womp womp, like very low-key. And I would have liked it to be like bam, they win everything. But no, I guess, I don't know, it's just go read it because you'll totally get what I'm saying. And yeah, that's really the only thing that I had a problem with, was the ending overall. I felt like didn't match the rest of the story. It was kind of anticlimactic, but at the same time, I really do get where Leigh Bardugo was going with it, why she wanted to keep it low-key, because there are other points in the story where Alina, the main character, just wants to keep everything on the down low, and she doesn't want any of the, like, recognition and the huge power that she has. So I do get it, but at the same time, I don't know that it just worked for me. If you have read it, then let me know your thoughts on the ending in the comments, but don't spoil anything in case somebody else hasn't read it, but just like kind of vaguely let me know what you thought. And if you really want to like have this full-on discussion with me, then that's totally awesome and I'd love to do that. But like kind of like tweet me or send me some kind of message, email me, I don't know, find me somewhere. You can see all those links down below in the description box. But yeah, other than that, I just really like this series. Overall, it was awesome. It's a great series to marathon because each book, although it looks big, it's about 300 pages a book, and obviously Ruin and Rising is the biggest book, but it's great to marathon because it's not a book series where you want to take breaks. You're going to finish Shadow and Bone and you're going to be like, I don't know, do I want to start Siege and Storm or do I want to do something else? And I wound up reading a different book before I read Siege and Storm. It was a mistake. Guys, don't do that. Just read Siege and Storm. Do it because it's so good and you won't regret it and you'll want to go right on to Ruin and Rising, and it's just bam, bam, bam. Find like a 3-day period, a 4-day period where you can just literally marathon read some books and pick up this series because it is just awesome and you won't regret it, and you'll just have so much fun reading about this magical world and you'll wish that you could live there because it's just so perfect. But yeah, so if you've read this series, let me know your thoughts on it. Make sure that if you haven't read it and you want more description on what the books are about and my thoughts on them, you can go to my blog and just make sure you pick them up and then come and talk to me about it because I would love to talk to you guys about this because I don't know very many people that have read them. I know a lot of booktubers own at least Shadow and Bone, but not a lot of them have read it, and I don't know. I just picked it up, and I thought it was really freaking awesome. So I don't know why people haven't picked them up, but they need to. Also, I showed this in my book haul, I think, but I'm going to show again. My books are signed. This one, they're signed. See? And she wrote in them a quote from the book, and I'm just not going to show that because I don't want to spoil anything. But then Ruin and Rising, little different. I don't know what it says. I don't. If any of you guys have had your book signed by Leigh and have had Ruin and Rising signed and she wrote on this side, let me know what it says because I don't know what it says. I know that in Siege and Storm, I'll just tell you, she wrote impossible and then crossed it out and wrote improbable because it has to do with the book. It's like nothing's impossible, just improbable. So there has to be a quote from a book, but I read the entire book and I still don't know what it says. So let me know if you guys have had your book signed by Leigh. Let me know because I still don't know what it means. But yeah, so thanks for watching, guys, and I'll be back soon with a new video, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!